it is shocking that so many fucking dumb boomers who literally 2 years ago would have said, "Commie Russia, USSR, better dead than red, baby," have turned around and are like, Russians are fine, I think. I'm ambiguous towards them. That is like 50 years of propaganda broken. I think maybe if tomorrow every single news media outlet and every single mainstream media apparatus was overtaken by communists or whatever, maybe Americans would also have a positive opinion about commies overnight and communism overnight. That is so crazy. Let's see what the people are saying. 52% of Americans back Ukraine conflict with Russia.
Well, I think the easiest way we can kind of just ask this is, do Americans like the way that Trump's handling his job and compare it to how they felt about Joe Biden? So this is the net approval rating. You look at Joe Biden back in 2024, he was 22 points underwater. Holy cow. You look at Donald Trump, it's just a different planet entirely. I mean, the gulf between these two is wider than the Gulf of America or Mexico, depending on which side of the aisle you stand on. He's at +2. So look, at this particular point, Americans are giving Donald Trump the
You're Dan's favorite? Yeah, that's why I've been banned more times than every single one of your favorite content creators on this platform. That was what was always funny, too. Everyone would always be like, Hasan is a PG-13 streamer. That's what Trainwrecks used to say. And it's like, motherfucker, I've been banned more times than you. What are you talking about? I've literally been banned more times than Trainwrecks. I've been banned more times than most content creators on this platform. What are you talking about?
benefit of the doubt. He's doing considerably better than Joe Biden was doing on the handling of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And so on this simple question, I think Americans are saying, okay, Donald Trump's doing all right on this.
What about specifically on how they feel about bringing the war to an end?
Yeah, okay. So, you know, look, questions on this can be quite complicated, but I think this kind of gets at sort of where the American trend line is. Americans on the Russia-Ukraine war want a quicker end of the war, but Russia keeps...
Bro, I'm going to say something crazy here. The numbers for Israel coming to the table for a ceasefire was like 80%. When will you get permanently banned? Why are you a subscriber to me for 2 months and asking when I'll get permanently banned? I don't know. I dislike you because of the right, and my brother would say you was a terrorist, but then I watched you and I was like, you right, and it's something we don't see eye to eye and everything, but not crazy. Anyway, it is wild to me that the American attitude towards Israel was like 80% of the American government. 80% of the American voters were like, please do a ceasefire. We need a ceasefire right now. Please stop sending me JD Vances. Oh my God. Oh my God, I'm losing my mind. My lolly.
Keeps its captured land. Look at this. 50%. Bare majority coming in here. Support Ukraine's right to fight, even if it means a longer war. That's at 48. This is very, very close. But the trend line on this question is so important because that want a quick end of the war. Look at this. You go back to August of 2022, it was at 31%. Now we're at 50%. I mean, that is a rocket ship upwards in terms of the Americans who want a quick end to the war, even if it means Russia keeps the captured Ukraine land. Americans are moving closer and closer to wanting a compromise, even if it means that Ukraine doesn't really get what it set out to want, at least at the beginning of this war.
And Americans' views on Russia are shifting as well.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons why we're seeing this is Americans who say Russia is an enemy. You go back to 2023, it was 64%. In that CBS News YouGov poll, it was down to 34%. Now, there is a chunk that believes that Russia is an unfriendly nation, but the...
Oh my God. This is incredible. How is that possible? Dude, I swear to God, Americans are the dumbest country on the... Americans are the dumbest people on the planet. Collectively. No way. Like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to think that like an entire nation is bad, okay? Or sorry, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to think that that an entire nation of people are not bad, right? It's not a bad thing at all. It's not a bad thing at all. Having said that, It is shocking that after a century of Red Scare, anti-red baiting, anti-Russia propaganda, USSR, why are you mad? This is good. No. I'm not mad. I'm not mad at all. I wish they would do this about China and every other country, really. But please, if you don't realize that Americans who have been taught to literally despise Russia during the Red Scare could so quickly... No, it's not that they're not falling for Red Scare propaganda anymore. You're wrong. It's entirely Telegram and Trump. I think that's what it is. I think it's straight up Telegram channels, Donald Trump. Like, how malleable Americans are is wild. We literally have developed a audience. I mean, this gives me a little bit of confidence. This gives me a little bit of hope, honestly. All China has to do is just like play the right propaganda notes, and maybe it is the Chinese century of prosperity, you know? Because most Americans still think Russia is the Soviet Republic. Most Americans don't think Russia is capitalist. They think communist Russia. Fucking Maxwell Frost, the Gen Z, the Zoomer congressperson, came out and was like, Soviet Russia. I can't believe like Trump doesn't want to attack commie Russia, Soviet Russia. Like, what are you saying? You weren't alive when the USSR existed. You were born after it ceased to exist. What do you mean? I think this is truly shocking. I don't think that it's bad to no longer hate any country. Okay, it's good that Americans don't have hate in their hearts for a country. Okay, that makes it harder to do global domination, American imperialism. But it's also alarming how malleable they are. It is alarming how malleable they are. Maybe it presents some semblance of hope for doing counter propaganda, but it's wild to me. This is wild. Why are you defending Russia? What am I watching? Oh my God. This is also partially what I mean. People do not have reading comprehension skills or critical thinking skills in general. I'm simply stating that it is shocking that so many fucking dumb boomers who literally 2 years ago would have said, commie Russia, USSR, better dead than red, baby, have turned around and are like, Russians are fine, I think. I'm ambiguous towards them. That is like 50 years of propaganda broken in a matter of 2 years, 3 years. That is crazy. Do you not understand how shocking that is? I think maybe if tomorrow every single news media outlet and every single mainstream media apparatus was overtaken by communists or whatever, maybe Americans would also have a positive opinion about commies overnight and communism overnight. If you can brick like almost a century of anti-Russia, anti-USSR propaganda virtually overnight with like a couple $1 million of targeted marketing campaigns, okay, and with the president coming out and being like, they're fine, actually. Yeah, 42% of Americans believe Russia is communist still. That's how stupid these people are.
Percentage who believe that they're either an ally or friendly, that's up to 34% as well, basically equal to the percentage who say that they're an enemy. So views on Russia have become, let's say, a little less isolated in terms of wanting Russia to be way out there on their own, thinking that they're an enemy. At this particular point, they're starting to see Russia a little bit more friendly, and I think that's part of the reason why Americans want to.
Oh my God, this is also a good point. Russia is more popular than the Democratic Party currently. Democratic Party approval rating, 31%. Russian approval rating in the minds of Americans, 34%. That's crazy. That is, what the hell?
I see a compromise at this particular hour.
Yeah, and this is after invading. This is after invading another country. Damn, dude. Damn. Americans are so wild, brother. America is a wild nation. It is shocking that not every single country on the planet is not freaking out every single day of the week about the fact that a nation comprised entirely of belligerent madmen have nukes and have used them before and have the appetite to use them again. Okay? It's crazy. It actually is crazy. All Vladimir Putin had to do was say, Ukraine is woke and gay, and we're based, and we're gonna break the woke transgender Ukraine's back and make them straight again, make them white again, make them Christian again. And literally everyone was like, that makes so much sense. You could sell communism to the American population by saying anti-communists are woke and gay. Communism is the future because anti-communists are woke, they're DEI, and they're gay.
Security guarantee than 20,000 troops from some random country that hasn't fought a war.
This is unironically the fucking MAGA communist position, by the way. I'm obviously joking. I don't believe that, okay? Welcome back, Jackson Hinkle.
In 30 or 40 years. The security guarantee and also the economic guarantee for Ukraine is to rebuild the country and ensure that America has a long-term interest. You're not going to do that if you come to the Oval Office, insult the president, and refuse to follow his plan for peace.
If he called, and I hate hypothetical questions.
Sure.
Forgive me. If he called tomorrow and said, I am ready to adopt your plan for peace, he can come back?
I think that if he called and had a serious proposal for how he was going to engage in the process, look, there are details that really matter that we're already working on with the Russians. We've already talked with some of our allies. He needs to engage seriously on the details. I think once that happens, then absolutely we want to talk to
you convinced Putin and the Russians are willing to meet them, I don't want to say the word halfway. They're willing to do their part to achieve a negotiated settlement.
Am I convinced? No. But do I think that there's a real pathway? You got to trust but verify. You've got to engage in the negotiation. You've got to see what steps people are willing to take. This is another thing, Sean. Obviously, I'm biased because I really love the guy. But when the media attacks President Trump as somehow on the side of Putin, two big problems with that. First of all, the only president in 20 years where you haven't had the Russians take a bunch of territory was under the first term of Donald J. Trump. The second part of that is you've got to actually accept that President Trump, he's not just assuming that everything the Russians tell him is true, he's negotiating with them. There's a give and take. There's a trust but verify. That's called diplomacy.
Bro, stop. Why does he keep saying trust but verify? This is new meta, I think. He just keeps saying that over and over again. What the hell?
Diplomacy, we used to have some respect for that in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, Jackson Hinkle went to Hasan Nasrallah's funeral proceedings and then came back to the United States unscathed. Meanwhile, I get fucking cavity blasted every time I walk through TSA. What the hell is going on? Tell me that dude is not a Fed, okay? Tell me that dude is not a federal agent. Jesus Christ. No shit is a Russian proverb? Wait, trust but verify is a Russian proverb, which rhymes in Russian. The phrase became internationally known in English after Suzanne Massey, a scholar of Russian history, taught it to Ronald Reagan, then president of the United States, who used it on several occasions in the context of nuclear disarmament discussions in the Soviet Union. Yeah, I mean, it's more so probably because Ronald Reagan said it, that they're saying it as well. What do the feds benefit for having Jackson on the payroll? I mean, it's super simple. It's much easier to undermine any sort of anti-imperialist thought if you make the person, make a prominent figure of anti-imperialism in the United States, a person who is belligerent and has no like tangible worldview that anyone can associate with. And also you basically undermine any sort of solidarity, any sort of movement building amongst the left on anti-imperialist boundaries. It's something that it's certainly something that the American government has done before. Yeah, I mean, LaRouche is a great example of this. Exactly. Did LaRouche also have some U.S. State and or intelligence connections? No, you are not mistaken. He literally split a communist party in two. I don't know what this is. I haven't been following on Jackson Hinkle's adventures. God damn, dude. Holy shit.